the subterranean dungeon.
Yeah.
Weren't you worried when she showed you bones now? Maybe she had someone down there waiting.
Well, that was the spot that nobody would check.
Some of the other rooms were the same as first we seen. Some had more bunk beds and tables, and one appeared to be an aid station, and has a large wooden table with several box-like cabinets hanging from the limestone walls. All in all, there must have been a dozen separate rooms, all pretty much the same.
That was the resistance, yeah.
Renee seemed familiar with all of them, as she looked at each of them with certain discernment and repugnance. Finally, after an hour of roaming its passageways, we surfaced. It felt good to breathe fresh air again as I sat on one of the benches provided for me. What's wrong? After Renee inquiring. She explained that where we had just left were the old limestone quarries used before the war as a cemetery by the city of Paris and taken over by the French resistance during the war. The rooms she had shown me were the headquarters of the French underground. I said I understand that part, but was not clear to me what your involvement in the entire event.
She was in it, yeah.
Yeah.
She was in it, yeah.
She then stated quite simply, I was in the French resistance during the German occupation. I looked at her as she uttered these words, and I could not comprehend what I was hearing. You were in the French underground, I explained.
Yeah.
I exclaimed. Yes, she smiled.
That was the one that's going to be a nun.
Yeah, I explained. You were, yes, she smiled, trying to reconcile in my mind what we just said. She nodded her head, and I was further convinced that she was truly a special person, and I held her in awe and admiration. I realized that I was carrying the package with me and handed it to Renee. She looked at it questioningly, and I told her to open it. She lighted up like a schoolgirl which her first present when she saw it was. As I glazed at a happy face, I was made aware that there was not much materially giving it to the person in affection as a loving gesture. She was used to give me that she did not know how I felt. I felt warm all over, and she looked at the stockings. I knew it was not a gift as such, but it was thought that made her glow with warmth and appreciation. She reached over and kissed me. I suddenly felt that I did not want to linger here any longer. It was too depressing to be here. I got up and explained, are you hungry? I am. Where would you want to get some dinner? She stated we're not too far from home and we could get some dinner. As I stated,
brains.
Yeah. Let's go somewhere. I feel like celebrating. I suggested. Renee looked at me and asked, what are we celebrating? I blurted out, not even thinking before, our friendship. She took my arm and started back to the metro station, where we were at the Place de Font Rochons, and our metro destination was the Place St. Michels, a little way from Renee's home. After a short ride, we went through the familiar illuminated blue sortie sign and headed out to Place St. Michel's. As we walked, Renee would look at me and smile, and once again something in French. She knew it annoyed me slightly, since I did not know what she was saying, but pleased me when she did it, and I think this was the reason. She resorted to it occasionally. We reached a place called La Trappe Saint, overlooking the sign.
Yeah.
The maitre d' welcomed us, and Renee greeted him with French. As we were escorted to our table, we passed black-jacketed waiters wearing white aprons and scurrying about. It was a warm and cozy place, large stone fireplace, throwing a soft yellowish glow throughout the dining room, which featured dark timbered wood with gleaming mirrors embedded in the paneled walls. Renee ordered in French, and I watched her as she spoke. She was aware I was watching her and felt a little uneasy as I observed her. She ordered a large steak platter along with French green salad and several baked potatoes as we returned from tidying up. Our salad arrived along with a basket of bread fingers and a bottle of wine. She had taken off her jacket and revealed a white silken blouse. I would ask her, at that moment I made up my mind before I left, I would ask her to marry me. As we ate, she talked about doing more sightseeing and that we should take a long metro ride to the coast of Brittany. I replied that I was perfectly content to spend the rest of my time with her and not go from place to place. With that, she said softly, "Do you really mean that? You're not just saying that." I told her, I took her hand and said, "I never meant it any more in my life." As I gazed, she sat next to me on the bench and her body until touching mine. Drink your tea while it's still hot," she explained, pursuing her lips over her cup and looking into the logs burning. "It must be very lonely for you here," I said, rubbing her knee with my hand. She seemed oblivious to my hand on her knee, and I began to tell her a little bit about her time in the monastery. She started about saying, in questions to my questions, that a novice should be subject to the strictest discipline and silence of all times. She was not allowed to talk to anyone except the sisters in charge, and at times the Mother Superior. They were all issued a small black notepad in which they recorded each day's infractions of the rules they had committed. At the end of the day, just before Vespers, they would go into another superior's chambers and review their transgressions. They allowed only so many infringements per day for to begin with. They must gradually decrease to 0 for the first 6 months. I released my hand from her knee, and before long, she was somber, but she put her eyes along with long and tenderness as she continued. My greatest infraction while talking to the other novices, and it took me some time to overcome that, she smiled and recalled how difficult it was. She recounted how Mother Superior would admonish her for and give her extra work duties to perform to make up for her deficiencies.
Yeah, that's when she went to Vietnam.
Yeah, she did them willingly with no remorse.
Yeah.
Finally, toward the end of her probationary period, she would enter the Mother Superior's chamber and proudly present her black book with no deficiencies recorded. She got off the bench and took my position beside me on the floor. I put my arm under her head as I held her down for the moment at time of the catacombs. She went on to say that she was allowed only one visit from her parents the first year, which was Easter time. She always mentioned sorrowfully that was the last time she ever seen her parents alive. During the second year, were filled with sunrise to sunset. A typical day would start at 5:30 hours with a short vigil before Mass, which at 6:05 hours, followed by morning prayers or Mass. Then from 9:30 to 11:40, there were work duties to perform until lunch at 12:10. After lunch was free time until 13:30 hours, at which time there was a short Mass devotion and we returned to our work assignment until 16:30. The last meal of the day was served at 17:10, which followed by sermons and lectures, which lasted until 1900 hours. The Mass of Adoration was next, which would last well over an hour, and after where there followed the review by Mother Superior. Lights were out at 21:50 hours. I stated rather bluntly that her schedule was far more demanding than which we had in the Army. She only smiled and took my hand and stated most of her duties were cooking and doing some paint work about the building. She occasionally did garden work in the springtime And so